Live now. Is it going to show up on the streaming software that we're live? Yes, it does. We are live on the. Hi, everybody. Welcome to
Hello.
Boldly Tracking. I'm your host, Ash. Anyway,
And my name is Sean.
Introduce yourself. Yeah, there you go.
I am the commanding officer of a soon-to-be Starfleet chapter that is launching called the Beowulf. It's actually a chapter that originally started off as a shuttle back in 1993.
Back
Long story.
in the days of yore.
Yeah, we had this thing that was like a Necronomicon or something. They sold it to us, and we read from it. Next thing you know, we ended up in the future. It was weird. You even had like a little Furby face, which I showed you the picture of.
Oh yeah, you sent that one. That was very welcome to Cthulhu.
Don't read from the book. Don't read from the book.
Well, actually, I think the problem with it was more along the lines of the reason Cthulhu won't visit is even he's like, okay, that's too weird. I'm not going there.
He just sends you on your way. He's like, nah.
Crank your volume a little bit to make sure that we're both at the same level here.
Okay.
All right. What did we think we were going to be talking about this week?
I think we were going to be talking about you catching up on Strange New Worlds or on Lower Decks. I think it was Lower Decks.
That's what I didn't do. Okay, so here's the problem. I thought we were going to be talking about how the Star Trek fandom is the thing that's helped keep this going and stayed true to course with some of their fan fiction and fan done series that they've put out. So I watched episodes of that instead.
Oh, well, that's fine. We can discuss that. I mean, I'm all good on that. I mean, we can discuss what I know about like fandom and like fan fiction and Mary Sue Productions and that sort of thing. So
I watched some. What was it? I watched some of the Star Trek Continues and Star Trek New Voyages Phase 2. And so I did some of those in Starship Farragut, and I was tempted to go back and watch Steam Trek. Do you remember that one? For those who have never seen it, I double dog dare you to go onto YouTube and Google. I think it's on YouTube. It was back in the day. Google Steam Trek. And what it was is just a wonderful group of individuals redid Star Trek, but they did it as a silent movie a la Buster Keaton kind of thing. And it was glorious in its ridiculousness. And that's all I can say about it. It was excellent for everything.
There was also like the 2000s or 2010s, probably more 2010s, which was Stone Trek or something like that, where they essentially did the Flintstones version of Star Trek.
No way.
And it was an animation. Yeah.
It was an animation? Okay.
Yeah. But they had voiceover work for it.
I wonder if Stone Trek preceded Steam Trek or if Steam Trek influenced Stone Trek.
I think they sort of resonated off each other, maybe. Sort of like one sort of precipitated and the other one just sort of, like Pong.
Well, I don't know.
Playing a game of Pong.
Apparently, Steam Trek, the moving picture, is a 1994.
Okay, so much before Stone Trek.
Yeah, so Stone Trek. Okay, that one was 2001 to 2007. That was an actual series. Okay. And who knows?
I thought it was like early 2000, but I could have been wrong. It wouldn't be the first time. I'm fallible. I will admit
that. No. Don't ever agree to that. No, you're not.
Okay, I rescind that then.
But let me close these out. So so I was watching some of those, and I have to applaud their effort. And that's a polite way of saying, man, they sucked as actors. I've seen better actors at Ren Fair where I performed.
That's fair.
But
you might actually be dealing with some of the people that.
Well, yeah, exactly. But the thing is they did more than I ever did. They actually put together a production. Some of them have some halfway decent, special effects. especially on the Star Trek Continues. If you look at it from like the first episode towards their later episodes, they really stepped up their game. I mean, you can tell they probably had some people who saw it and went, "Yeah, I want to be a part of this, and I got skills," and they came on board. Yeah.
Phase 2 was like that too, or New Voyages. The first one is kind of like, you know, not to disrespect their production values or anything, but the quality of the video is a lot different than the later product that they came out with. The later product is much better lit and has higher resolution. The quality of the sets has gone up. Mr. I think his first name was Greg, but Greg Schnitzel. I may be completely slaughtering his name. I'll have to look it up. But anyway, I can do that real quick, actually. Let me just do that real quick so I'm not disrespecting him.
Star Trek Continues?
Yeah. No, Star Trek Phase 2, he was the prop master. And he used to be on TrekBBS.com, and he gave fans a lot of information about the different props that were out there. And he was really instrumental in helping people find things that they never thought they'd be able to find.
Was it Brad Nelson?
No, this guy passed away, unfortunately. And
we can kill Brad if we need to. No, sorry.
Is this a Rocky Horror thing?
Janet. Okay.
But anyway, Greg was he was.
Oh yeah, Gregory Schnitzer.
Yeah, that's it. He was instrumental in getting a lot of the old props that were from the original series and finding copies or things that would be equivalent. So like the coffee cups to the bedspread to the coffee carafe that I have that I think I've shown you. All that was things that he sourced and found.
You know, if I were to have any prop from the original series that I could have, I would want the most famous the most famous sci-fi prop of all time. The one with the lasers that just fire back and forth.
Oh, are you talking about like the big pump thing that's in like airplane?
Yeah, they use an airplane. What is it doing? I don't know. It's just firing back and forth.
It just has the little light that goes like this around. Yeah.
Yeah. If I were to have any prop as my creme de la creme, my unicorn, it would be that prop.
Okay, well, I know what to get you for your birthday then.
Definitely.
It's actually from what I've read is it's essentially pump or like pool pumps. They're basically the housings for pool pumps, and they put a light in between it. But the housings on the end are from like pumps for like a pool circulation system.
That is funny.
So I still have to look up RPF replica prop forum if you guys don't know what that is.
No, never heard of it.
Oh, you should check it out. You'd have a wonderful time. You'd probably get lost in there.
How did that happen? I didn't even finish typing replica, and it propagated as replica prop form.
Probably because it's listening to my voice.
Probably. Maybe I've been there before, and I just don't recognize it. Let me see if it pops up, if it's something I recognize.
Your Furby overlords have graced you with a link.
Hold on, let me share what I'm doing.
Sure.
Yeah, so here it is. Click the icon above to enter the RPF. Dun, dun, dun. Welcome to the RPF. Replica props, replica costumes, screen-used costumes and props, free replica paper props, sculpture and makeup effects. Wow. Star Wars, get that out of here. We only watch good sci-fi.
Well, we don't talk about Star Wars.
Well, this is science fiction, not science fantasy. So.
Oh.
So, okay, replica props and New Voyagers. So, what was that prop called? What that would be the
It's a blinky light machine. It was a Hollywood prop that was used from, I think its first appearance is actually in Battle Beyond the Stars, but it appears in Buck Rogers. It appears in Battlestar Galactica. It appears in not sure if it appears in Star Wars itself, but I'm pretty sure after Battlestar
Doctor
Galactica
Two.
and Buck Rogers, it was an airplane, and then it was in Star Trek 2. I know
It was
that for a
also in
fact.
Buck Rogers and a whole
Yeah,
bunch of stuff. Apparently, they
yeah.
from what I'm reading here, it's the most important. The videos have it as the Charles Tucker invented the blinking tubes without function. They are the most important device in the universe. Yeah, I believe it. But why don't they have the Tucker tubes? Why didn't it come up with something? You savages!
It's probably wanting you to click on the link for the forum so you can go down that thread and go down the rabbit hole of
What?
reading.
Well, but that's the thing, was I was hoping it would pull it out. But what the heck? We'll figure it out later. I'll stop sharing. But yeah, apparently that is called, well, here, let me share this then.
Give a picture of the item. Yep, there you go.
The most important device in the universe, a pair of blinking tubes without function. Yeah. Apparently it was in Starship Troopers too.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. This has been everywhere. Firefly.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I think it makes an appearance in Galaxy Quest, maybe, but
I don't think it's appeared. It was in Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
I don't think it's appeared anytime in the last 10 years. I think that's one of the things that's kind of concerning, is somebody thinks it's either been bought and it's being kept or it's been destroyed. So it's hard to know.
I hope not. But if they're gonna replicate any prop, that should be the prop to replicate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why have filament printers if I can't make something like that?
Well, the good question is if somebody could source the particular pumps that were in question, you could easily recreate it without having the actual original prop. I mean, you could just go ahead and
just source one of those pumps
mm-hmm.
and use that as a model, and then you could, print the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. Forever and ever.
Forever.
Generations will thank you, sir, because they will have the blinking light machine. A little light going. Doo, 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 doo.
And I've gone down the rabbit hole, as I am wont to do, because I had started off. I had purchased this lighting board from Tenna Controls, and after shipping and taxes and everything, it was like $26 for this. All right. And what it does is it's got multiple pins here. So you can change which one it's on to change the lighting, the frequency, because it controls both the navigation and strobes. So you have the different blinky patterns, and it has all the blinky patterns for most of the ships.
Nice.
But I was like, why am I paying $26 for this? All right. I'm a man. So, of course, like all good people who are not right in the head, I spent more money purchasing DigiSpark boards so I could create my own boards in the future and not have to spend $26 on the board and do my own lighting from here on out, because I'm stupid. It's kind of like how, I didn't like somebody charging me $20 for a bottle of homemade mead, so I went so far down the rabbit hole learning how to homebrew my own stuff. I now have my own winery. I'm stupid.
Yeah. I kind of wonder if a lot of hobbies start like that. It's like, hey, this guy's charging me $80 for this model. I could do it myself for like $30. And you go down the rabbit hole, and then you keep going ahead and, doing stuff and creating new models or painting and building new models. So
I'm sure that's how a lot of, like a lot of the aftermarket sites where people are coming up with, Tenna Controls with their lighting kits, which, don't get me wrong, their lighting kits are great. I mean, just the simple fact that you can get that one board and you can now have the correct strobe lighting for God's. What were everything on this piece of paper? Hold on a second.
Sure.
It will give you the lighting for TOS Enterprise, the Refit, Reliant, Voyager, D and E, and as well as Grissom timing and the double strobe blinky pattern of the JJ Prize. All on that one little book. So don't get me wrong and think that I am nagging on Tenet Controls, because they have an excellent product, and that's just the smallest. Have you been on their site to take a look at some of their lighting stuff?
I think I was a long time ago, but I haven't checked it out lately.
They have, I mean, lighting stuff down to the point where if you want a, like a 350 refit that goes through the entire startup procedure, complete with sound effects and everything, and the phaser blast and the frickin' photons, and in the shuttle bay having the blinking lights for the landing strips and all the stuff like that, they got your hookup. And
nice.
One thing that I really love that they did is on the Bussards, they stepped away from having motorized Bussards, and instead they have, buying, how the sausage is made. They have circular boards with SMDs on it, and they have just multiple SMDs there that they can control the patterning on it and have it, blinking in the right colors and stuff like that to simulate a spinning Bussard without having to deal with the motor or the noise or the extra wires and all that stuff. They did a wonderful job.
Nice.
Yeah. But the shit ain't cheap. And
I'm
cheap.
Have you seen Admiral Buck's most recent build of the Enterprise?
Oh, he's doing it up freaking well.
Yeah. That looks pretty sweet. I can imagine he's probably going to end up, he has it's actually a discussion point we'll have at the next Genetmatics meeting, but he actually has the phasers on the ring on the bottom of the saucer. If you look at the Enterprise saucer, actually I'll just do this. This is an amazing trick. Let me show you this amazing trick. I shrunk my 350 model down to this size through the massive tissue compression eliminator. There's no tissue in here, but somehow it happened.
I broke mine.
So right here, folks, this little ring right here that I'm talking about is where Admiral Buck has the phasers coming out of. Yep. The same place, yep.
Yeah. So he's got the phasers coming out where?
Like right here on this edge, on the lip.
Like a little bit over. Really? Because didn't there used to be a turret under there?
There's no turrets on the original model. Actually, I'll show you where the phasers come out of in several spots. In one episode, the phasers come out right here. In another episode, they come out here on these two spots here. Generally, it comes out about right here, right around this edge, right here. Huh. And I kind of think this whole thing, this whole section, is actually a phaser. Like, you know how Star Trek Next Generation has the collimator phasers?
Yeah.
Go around in the ring. I think that's exactly the same thing.
No. I refuse to go down that. They did not have they didn't have the phaser strips back then. Nope. They had turrets. I'm sorry. There's only so far down the rabbit hole I'm willing to go. They don't have the.
I cannot go down this rabbit hole. I will not. I'm a turret man.
No. We have to allow them to have a lesser tech in order to grow to a better tech. That's one of the problems whenever you're doing a prequel, is because our abilities in special effects and our knowledge level of what futuristic should be has increased from when the original was made. So now you're left with, if you make it the same as what the original was, it doesn't look high tech. But if you made something that looks high tech now, it makes the original look even more crappy. I mean, that's the reason that, in the TOS, it was high tech then, but nowadays it looks like they're just pushing lit up Jolly Ranchers. There's nothing there.
Wow. So you actually gave a pretty good argument why Star Trek Enterprise has problems and why the Akira Prize is so jarring for a lot of old fans, because they're like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be retro?
Yeah, that is straight up one of the issues. But the thing is that, if you are going to do something where you are playing around in that timeline or a previous timeline, you have to stick to that technology. And it's these producers and whoever who want to still make it sci-fi but make it, a prequel or something like that, who are screwing up. I mean, come on, carry it on. All right, you got a whole universe of shit. Yeah, just keep going, and you're supposed to trek forward, not go back. All right.
Hence why we're boldly trekking.
Yeah, and they're supposed to go where nobody has gone before, not where everybody has rolled all the hell over.
We bolded that out.
Yeah.
So
I know the word I was going to say. It was going to be that.
I'm actually gonna say this actually segues into our discussion, because one of the things that I really liked about the fan productions from the 2000s going into the 2010s was that they did a lot of effort to try and do homages to the original series, going so far as recreating the original sets, recreating the original look, and in some cases redoing things slightly, a little bit under the line of complete revamping or like rebooting it. But you had a lot of innovation in terms of fan production filmmaking, and you even get members of the cast and production crew who worked on Star Trek as an actual TV show showing up in the particular productions, like Star Trek Phase 2 or New Voyages has Chekhov, Sulu, and Dorothy Fontana, who was a major element in the original series. I mean, these are all people who were involved in the original Star Trek. And then you have, with Star Trek Continues, of course, you have that stellar cast of people. You even have the guy who played the original Apollo, which is hilarious in one of the episodes. He reprises his casting as Apollo, which is, you should check it out. It's a good episode. It's fun to watch.
I did see it. Yeah. He it was, I mean, it was very good. I mean, that's what I liked about it is even though they were going, it was made after all of the TNG, the Deep Space Nine, the Voyager, all the stuff like that. They made it after that. They went back to the TOS. All right. But they didn't, and maybe it's just a factor of the, on their shoestring budget they had as just fans making it. All they were able to do was just recreate what was already there, because as a fan, they were able to do the same level of special effects and production as Roddenberry was with full studio backing back in the 60s. I mean, that's the difference in quality that 40 years can make, and how much we now have, as an ability to be able to do stuff. I mean, you can do more video editing on your phone than all of Disney had available to them back in the 1960s. They would have shot you and hid the body in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride just to have a chance at a non-linear editor to do their stuff with.
Oh yeah. I still think that the greatest innovation, actually as a result of military technology, was programmable ROM chip made that all this possible, at least for people to be able to have ubiquitously computers and things that will allow them to do the editing and whatnot that we're talking about now. Without that, you wouldn't have that ability.
I mean,
computers would still be accessible to corporations, but they wouldn't be like in our hands in the traditional sense.
The level of processing power capable on this little thing right here that I'm bitching about paying $26 with shipping and handling for. God, I mean, think of what this would have done for the Apollo people.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I mean, you
a couple of these together, they wouldn't have needed that one lady in the movie.
You know, it even brings up the point of distributed networking. What if, you know, you didn't want to put the guidance controls inside the ship? You could put them in the suits. And so each person would have their own chip and essentially be able to just do a distributed network across the suits. And then as long as you're all in the capsule, you're fine. You can't leave anybody behind.
Well, maybe that was... Maybe that would have been like the mutually assured destruction that made sure you didn't leave anybody behind. Can't leave him behind, definitely. Otherwise we can't go back.
And this is a story seed for science fiction writers out there. You know, we're going to do distributed networking for like your computer for your ship whenever you leave the prison planet. So you all have to be on the ship, otherwise you can't leave. So there you go. You're welcome.
All right.
So, but getting into the writing and whatnot, have you ever touched on or read much of the fanzines from the 70s or 80s or 90s or anything like that?
No, because I have a mental problem when it comes to reading what other people are writing in their fan fiction, because it always rankles me. They always have such a, putting these characters up on pedestals and then their writing goes through on that. Kind of like, I think the whole reason I don't do that is because I remember as a kid reading Star Trek books. There's only two of them I ever read, and one of them was Splinter in the Mind's Eye.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That one completely ruined all of that stuff for me, because I was just like, wow, that is my time wasted. And that was back before they decided. I mean, and when that came out, that was before they decided that Luke and Leia were going to be brothers and sisters. So if you think there was, a little bit of, will they, won't they going on in the movie, oh man, it was hard in that book.
Cue banjo music from Arkansas.
Yeah. Oh God, there was applesauce, and if she ain't good enough for her family, she's not good enough for ours. It was bad.
And it was actually a sequel on the download, because they didn't know if they were going to have Empire. So Lucas, I think Lucas worked with Alan Dean Foster to write that Splinter of the Mind's Eye. And it is what it is. I mean, it's a whole different thing. It creates the Kyber crystal thing, though. That's where the Kyber crystal idea came from.
That's where the whole Splinter in the Mind's Eye. Yeah. But that's the thing is, that was the splinter part. That was the splinter of a crystal. But that was, you could tell that, if you've ever had a chance to go back through any of George Lucas's original drafts, you realize that he benefits quite greatly from having multiple drafts and people go over his stuff, because his original ideas are not the best.
Yeah.
And Q Starkiller, who, that was his original name for Luke Skywalker, was Luke Starkiller. And he brought that name back for the sequels.
Force Unleashed or something, whatever.
Starkiller Base.
Yeah. Well, there was also the series of games where I think it was called Force Unleashed, where they had a character that was, I think, Starkiller. But anyway, yeah. I mean, the whole Journal of the Wills is also another thing, which is referenced in the later sequel trilogy. Who are the Wills, and why is it important for them to journal all of this? And why are they hanging out, not talking to anybody? Who are these Wills people?
Not a lot of will going on with these Wills. Let me see here. I'm making sure everything's still printing. I got two printers running and one printer down right now that I need to set something Possibly parts to fix the ship that I dropped. Anyway.
Well, I think you'll get it. I think it doesn't look disastrous. I don't see like any cracks in it. So.
It mostly broke on glue lines.
The same lines.
Yeah.
So
I like I said, I it almost makes me wish that I could be part of a production just to participate in it, because it seems like something that would have been interesting to participate in. But then there's the other part of me that goes, yeah, you might want to participate, but you would never want to try to pull this production off, because that is way too difficult and way too much herding cats.
You know what's actually funny about that? You mentioned it. There used to be like a fan production facility in Oklahoma City, and I knew several of the people who were involved with that.
Yeah.
One of them actually, the funny story about that, just real quick, was we had attended the same elementary school this guy I'm talking about. His name's Tim, and he was a kind of decent Star Trek fan. And I got the David Kimball blueprints. This is when they first came out, and I was like, "Oh, I got these David Kimball Star Trek blueprints, which are the motion picture blueprints." Right. And I brought them to school and showed it to him, and he was like completely floored that somebody had actually taken the time to draw out the Enterprise.
Oh yeah,
detail all that stuff.
Now,
and so
is this the bowling alley Enterprise?
No, this is actually the motion picture Enterprise.
That was the motion picture one. Okay.
Yeah, TMP. This is David Kimball's work. This is after that by several years.
I got there. Yeah.
Yeah. So he actually, when the Star Trek production crew created their facility in Oklahoma City, he actually signed up and worked for them. And he was like, "Hey, Sean, I work for these guys, thanks, or at least in part, sort of the whole thing." So it was cool. It was nice, seeing that going on and being able to enjoy that vicariously through Facebook and their posts. I think they moved all the way up to somewhere up in the East Coast somewhere now. So they've moved far, far away. So it's not like a jaunt down to Oklahoma City anymore, but it's still out there.
Did they ever find out who was putting the rocks in there?
The rocks?
Yeah, putting the rocks in the consoles. That when the console blew up, all the rocks came out.
It's probably the butler that did
it. The what?
The butler.
The butler
gets up to a lot of nonsense. One of my running gag jokes is that the butler did it. It's because Agatha Christie, her thing about the butler did it is because there was another author. Every single murder mystery the other author wrote, the butler did it. It was like clockwork.
See, that's the thing is, if I recall, I was reading something like a year or so ago. They were talking about the whole the butler did it thing. And apparently it has been a part of our culture and consciousness for so long that the earliest recorded thing, which was like in the 1800s, the earliest recorded thing of the butler did it was someone complaining about the overuse of the butler did it trope. So they would have been used so much that our first recorded incident of it was complaining the fact that it had been used so much. I thought that was interesting.
I still enjoyed that Eric Stillwell, when he came to Oklahoma City for a convention, decided to share the information about yesterday's Enterprise and how Riker was going to buy it with a piece of wood in the neck. It was like, so it's not a rock or some other piece of debris? No, he's going to die by a piece of the horseshoe getting shot through his neck.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Way to go. In the original draft of yesterday's Enterprise, also Wesley did it, which would have been a fan favorite moment. Not to diss Will Wheaton, but at that point in time, a lot of male, young adult males were like kind of annoyed with Wesley because he got to be on the show. Why can't we be on the show? I mean, we're less obnoxious than him.
It wasn't that. I mean, and this goes to Will Wheaton and his acting ability. Because if you can play a part that is written annoying, All right, and the writers wrote Wesley as an annoying little shit. All right, and if you can play that part, well, if you can play that part well enough that everybody hates you, and it's like it's like the actor who played, was it Joffrey on Game of Thrones? Yeah, he played that so well. And from what I understand, everybody who worked with him had nothing but mad props for him. Said he was a wonderful person, great to work with, you know, shirt off the back kind of guy. But he played that ass of a character so well that, you know, he's pretty much retired from acting now because he can never play anything else after he is now known as that character. He did it so damn well. Everybody hates that character. Everybody was so happy to see that character die.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well, it's like what happened with several actors throughout Hollywood in the 40s. With my brain's like blanking on his name, but anyway, like they were villains for a long period of time, for instance, and they tried to break out. Finally, they got into, you know, doing something different.
James Bradley?
You know, no, it's gonna sound really bad. Let me just pull this up here so I can jog my memory. But anyway, the whole thing was that, like with the Maltese Falcon, where you have
Humphrey Bogart.
Humphrey Bogart. He originally started off. I was remembering Bogart. I couldn't remember his first name.
Yeah.
But he originally started off as playing villains, and they kept typecasting him as somebody who played villains. And finally, he got his breakout role, you know, in the Maltese Falcon, or it was, you know, whatever other one he did that was related. But it was the Sam Spade mystery, and essentially he ends up, you know, getting out of that typecasting. It's really hard for them to do a lot of times because people think of him as like, you know, it's like Harrison Ford with, you know, Han Solo to a certain degree. People were like, well, you're either Han Solo or you're, you know, Indiana Jones. He really didn't get typecast all that much, but he did have problems with it, from what I understand. I could be completely wrong.
It is a wonderful problem to have. All right. A part that is done so well and paid you so well that you get to bitch about it as you're climbing into your private airplane to fly away. And he has several private. Matter of fact, I think he crashed one of them a couple of years back. It was a redone P-51 or something like that he had. And if
did you blame that on the fuzzy co-pilot that was sitting next to him?
Oh, you could very well have, or at least the fuzzy dice. They got his balls. No, and that's the thing is if you've profited enough that you can have, you know, your restored antique airplane, shut the fuck up.
I think that's one of the reasons why he wanted to have Han Solo killed for so long. Which is public knowledge. He wanted to have him off as soon as possible. In fact, I think he wanted to have him off in Return of the Jedi, or he wanted him not to come back. But in any case, it's been a long time since I thought about that. Better try to research it. But anyway, it's one of those things where you have a character you're like you're identified with, but you're like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, like I said, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah. But getting back to the whole thing with fanzines and whatnot, I think it's interesting that you have like all these productions. A lot of them use, you know, production scripts and whatnot that were from the original series or even from Star Trek Next Generation that weren't ever used. I mean, like they went ahead and decided to Blood and Fire is a notable one with Denise Crosby in Phase 2 that was written but, you know, not developed and not turned into an episode. And it has a lot of things that were considered taboo, talking about AIDS or talking about, you know, blood-related illnesses. They just basically decided that this was too complex. There's also social issues with, you know, characters that are homosexual and things of that sort. And, you know, they didn't want to go into that and didn't want to make a relative issue at the time, which is interesting because of the racial, you know, issues with Kirk and Uhura kissing in an episode of the Star Trek series in the original run that wasn't aired in the South because it was too much. You can't show that kind of thing in here. That's not right. That's just not right.
Well, I think I heard it best because it was here recently. I was reading something where someone was talking about how you know some people will look back at like the TOS series and look at what they and they go, oh, they thought they were on the edge at the time. They thought they were really progressive at the time, but if you look at it now, it's so regressive and not it's very chauvinistic and stuff, blah 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 blah, and all this stuff like that. But then someone responded with, but you got to realize, if we didn't have them pushing that boundary then, we would not be where we are now. All right. They are the giants whose shoulders we stand on. And if we see further because of the elevation that we're at, we only see that because we're standing on them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Look at me, philosophical and crap. Talking about giants and shoulders. But yeah, and that's the thing too, is we have here local. I think she lives in Hutch. A writer who used to write on Next Generation, Susan Lambden.
Yep.
And I have gotten to sit around a table with her and hear her tell some stories of writers' room antics and stuff that went on when the episodes that she was there for, and the fact that when they were the fans were creating those new episodes, basically creating their fan episodes, the fact that they had unused scripts to utilize is a great resource that not everybody has, and that was very fortunate for them.
Well, I think that it was a great resource. I think it actually helped some fans get to see things that they had always read about and not got a chance to see over the years.
You think maybe it added a bit of legitimacy to them as well?
Yeah, I think that also helped.
Okay.
I think that having something written by some of the great writers for Star Trek the original series. Some of them were just spec scripts, but some of them were actually full-fledged scripts. Like Blood and Fire, I think, was a full-fledged script by David Gerrold. And I know Dorothy Fontana contributed a lot of material for that as well. I do think that it's also kind of funny that you do get in some of the fan productions, and this is looking at you, of Gods and Men, where they bring back Charlie Evans from Charlie X, the original series, and they go whole hog with, hey, we're going to take these cast members from Enterprise that we had, and we're going to have them guest star in this production using sets from, I think it was Star Trek Continues. It may have been Star Trek Phase 2.
Right.
Castigate me at will if you find whichever the case may be. But the whole thing was that they lifted continuity and material from Starfleet Battles, even, I think, because there was some stuff from Starfleet Battles of Gods and Men, which was actually kind of funny to see. Like the Dreadnought, which is from the technical manual, I think also makes an appearance, and actually also makes an appearance in Picard, which has now legitimized it. It's a rough, while Riker's the bar, he's talking about what's the deal with all the Galaxy class starships and the fat ones, and then right next to the Enterprise D is this 3 nacelle thing that would have made Roddenberry shriek to see on the screen. But it was sitting right there on the bar. So if you haven't noticed that, that's there. It's legitimate. But the other thing is that even with fan writing, sometimes the Mary Sue effect comes out. And, you get the, hey, I'm this person who gets to meet the original series cast or the next gen cast or whatever. And so if you don't know what Mary Sue is, you are Mary Sue. You write as though you are the person who is going and having this adventure. And
that's
you
that
place
whole
yourself into the story.
that's that whole fan fiction thing that I was talking about, where they that's that. Thank you for putting a term to it. Yeah, that's one of the things that turned me off of it. It was just a whole lot of self-masturbatory kind of stuff going on.
Well,
it definitely
that's
was
a lot
no
of
Raymond.
writing actually from the 19th century onwards. Is like,
Oh
what
yeah,
would I have done if I had been in this situation with all these characters? Like I think there's actually like sequels to some of the you know some of the stories that were written by some of the authors. Like trying to remember one of the ones that sticks out in my mind. I can't think of it at the moment. I need more caffeine in my diet, I guess. But no, I mean it's just like literally you're sitting here going, okay, why don't you write something new? Well, it's a frame reference that I want to be in this story because it makes me feel good about myself. That's generally what happens. And so you end up with people writing stories that are otherwise not very tenable. One that comes to mind, although it has actually a sequel to it. It's a book that was a Star Trek novel called Dreadnought, oddly enough, which segues off of the three nacelle design for the technical manual, and has this sort of Excelsior-esque looking ship with three nacelles. And the story is written from the point of view of essentially involving a character named Kuiper. And that has been accused of having sort of Mary Sueisms going on with Diane Duane's book. And then there's its sequel called Battle Stations. But it's one of those things where it shows up even in the writing for, I think, Star Trek Next Generation, Star Trek Voyager to some degree. I think there's some episodes that have call outs to Mary Sueisms. Sort of like Captain Proton on the holodeck,
Oh yeah. Yeah,
so
but that's I see what you're saying there, and you're right. A lot of it is along those lines of it's like that. You and I were both marveling over on that one forum on Facebook where the gentleman had created this ship, this monstrosity that he strapped every nacelle and everything he could to it. I mean, to the point that it, geometrically, I think MC Escher got a nosebleed looking at it. And then he created this backstory, and basically he had every armament conceivable in it, and every power. I mean, it was just basically someone who was doing that whole Mary Sue, but on a starship level, going, look at my starship, it's the bestest and baddest that was ever made. And I'll call it the SS Leviathan Jim 7 or whatever the hell. And yeah, it was just wow.
super ship isms, or super ship itis is what I'd like to call it. You got to always one up the next guy, or the other guy comes up with something.
And that's one of the things is I think we as a generation of people have, for some stupid reason, gotten away from being able to tell small stories.
Oh, yeah.
All the stories have to be huge and grand and top the last one. We don't tell small stories anymore. Even our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, he's not in the neighborhood anymore.
He's in the universe.
Yeah,
in the multiverse.
He's everywhere. Yeah, right. But
yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. It actually harkens back to the Beowulf, because the story of the Beowulf, you have a guy who's a geek, or he's not a geek, I'm sorry. he's actually coming to the Geek Nation, and he arrives because essentially he's been called by Hrothgar to help him with his problem with this creature that's killing his men. And so it's encapsulated. It's a story about this fight between these, this individual and this monster. And then because of the narrative, the fictional narrative, once the hero has dispatched that villain, then the next one has to be a little bit tougher. You can't just make it the same level of villain, because then it's uninteresting, because he just does the same thing, and you end up with that. But the problem is we haven't figured out how to write a story without making it consistently going bigger and bigger and bigger. So now
I beg to differ.
Okay.
I think there was the skill there, and to point to it, I will just say, look at the A-Team.
Look at the A-Team?
At the A-Team. They never graduated past driving around in a van.
but true,
I mean, the Dukes of Hazzard barely ever left Hazzard County.
True. I'm gonna ask you this question though: is the Dukes of Hazzard or the A-Team as eminently watchable as they were back then? Do you decide that you're going to pull out the A-Team or the Dukes of Hazzard just to watch?
Oh, there's a difference. We're not talking about whether or not those are still watchable. We're talking about if we had the ability to tell a story where they can continue to just do something in the small scale and not have to get bigger all the time.
True, but I'm also going to say that part of your issue is that you're going to have to appeal to later people for that story.
No, they're going to make it all for me. Yeah. This is my reality. Everything revolves around me. This is what's going on.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. I will keep that in mind.
Yeah, trust me. My wife disabuses me of that notion on a daily basis.
Does she do it? But does she do it with coercion, or does she do it with force?
Let's just say sometimes I have to be told twice.
Okay. Well, as long as you don't have any bruises or welts at the end of the day.
No, she's an expert about it.
That's why I wear long sleeves.
Yeah. Where's my shelter? No, I think that the problem, it's we could tell the small stories, but we've stepped away. And that's one of the things that Strange New Worlds, tries to get back to. And we've discussed this before. They try to get back to the episodic and not so much on the story arc. And that's what, the, Bruce Banner, Incredible Hulk had going for it. What was Kane? What was that? The Kung Fu. All right. He just wandered the land, and every time it was a different, it was a different story that could be solved in a 45-minute show, 1 hour commercials. And it was the same with the A-Team. They went where they were needed. And that's, I kind of think we need that. I mean, even with like the overall arc, because like Big Bang Theory, they had overall arcs going on. But for the most part, it was just episodic. You could step into basically any episode and just enjoy the episode without really having to know that much background on it. The same was for Cripe's Friends. All right. I mean, there were overall story arcs, but, they were almost like a background to the episodes themselves. And I'm just saying that, they need to get back to telling small stories. Take the crew out of the biggest, baddest ship that ever lived and throw them back down into a garbage scow or something. All right.
And they did.
And they did.
In Section 31.
Yeah, they did in Section 31, but they didn't do it right. They didn't have the twins. What was that? Quark? Was that the name of the show? Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so I think they should do it. I think they would get a better and they don't even have to have the big ass special effects with it. I mean, I'm ready for a Dark Star, level of alien that's made out of a trash bag. All right. If you remember that,
Armus? Armus is back.
Did you ever watch Dark Star?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was thinking also you're referring to Armus because Armus is basically one slick in a trash bag. So,
no. I'm thinking the one where the guy has to have a philosophical argument with a bomb to keep it from not exploding.
Keep it from blowing up. Yeah.
Yeah. Let there
Don't
be
ever
light.
do that with your nuclear weapons, people. Please don't.
No.
Please.
It ended badly. Although the one guy did get to surf the lights at the end.
The blinky light machine.
Oh, yeah.
There's Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing is that with stories, the real problem is that people want to leave their mark. They want to do something original. They want to do something different, but they want to work in the universe that they're writing for or producing it. I think that leads to problems in production, but I also think it leads to problems in continuity. Brandon Braga is an example of this. Like Brandon Braga was like, "Well, we're gonna do everything, whatever we want, because continuity, schmeltnity, so to speak." And I love Brandon Braga's story that he got his foot in the door with Star Trek Next Generation, which is the Inner Light, the risking of flute and whatnot, and Picard lived another life. Awesome story. I love that story, actually.
It was a great story.
But at the same time, just going ahead and going from the point of view of taking what you know about, the universe you're in, and then just like, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to write whatever I want. And then it has to become part of the continuity. It leads to some interesting issues. I'll just leave it at that. Because, it's like, well, this is what it is, and then it's not. And then, this keeps happening over and over. So now in Star Trek, we have this continuity thing where, it was a time warp, because we were talking about that the last time we had the episode. And so these time wars have caused glitches in the timeline. And Discovery has the Guardian of Forever saying, hey, I've relocated myself because people kept changing the timeline. I'm like, so this is what happened. It wasn't writers. It was somebody going, hey, I'm going to go back in time and shut and just make a mess of things.
Well, see, that's the thing. I was watching where they had done an interview with them right after Enterprise had failed, and they were talking about the fact is they didn't want to do all that time stuff. Braga did. He didn't want. He wanted to concentrate on what we said they should concentrate. The stuff that came after the whole Xindi and all. They didn't want to do all that Xindi stuff. They wanted to just carry on the story, and that's one of the problems too. Is it's not him, it's the producers. And you said it very succinctly. You said it very succinctly just now when you said they want to put their mark on it. All right. And that means they got to come in and shit all over it and rub their fecal matter in so it smells like them. All right. And I think there should be more people out there who just want to get a paycheck. All right. If you just show up, make the same stuff. All right. Not necessarily all the same, but basically just keep it going along. You're guaranteed a paycheck for a lot longer. All right. Because people want to have the same thing over and over. I mean, just take a look at your, what are the longest running shows other than The Simpsons? All right. The longest running shows are soap operas, and it's the same crap over and over and over. And it's tell the truth, Star Trek is a soap opera in space.
Yeah. Well, it's also like Doctor Who. It's the same sort of thing. You're basically telling the same kind of story over and over again. The major problem is that I can see is appealing to newer, essentially. Newer audience members. I'd like to almost want to say customers because they're trying to sell something to them. But it's essentially you're selling the world, you're selling the franchise to new prospective clients or customers.
Okay, I agree with you. If they're coming in cold. All right. But this is like religion or soap operas. You start them young. All right. They walk with their parents. All right. They get hooked then. and then it carries on the cycle. All right,
Mhm.
this is how Catholicism goes. All right, and I'm so getting canceled. But yeah, if they
Well,
are
red
raised
stamp
on,
appears on your forehead. Cancel.
yeah, cancel. Where's my Me Too? But yeah, that's how you do it. I mean, if since we're going to rewrite history here, this is what's going to happen now. They're just going to go ahead and make small stories, and we'll hook them in with the Vulcan equivalent of As the World Turns.
Actually, the thing
Did you
that,
hear
that
about
I,
Serac? His deduction was illogical. No.
he had to be taken away from remedial tax education. Such
He came
shame
back,
for
his
his
ears
family.
were pointier.
Such shame for his family.
Yeah. He went to an ear sharpening.
But actually, it's the thing I will say this about Japanese fiction in literature, and especially in manga, is that they allow, especially I'll use an example of a series that a lot of Star Trek fans from Generation X like, because they were raised on it too, which is called Star Blazers, also known as Space Battleship Yamato. There are so many continuities that sort of sit side by side in Space Battleship Yamato that
Yeah.
you can almost pick and choose whatever you want. And it's kind of like almost like a MCU, Marvel, DCU kind of thing. You have like, well, this thread goes this way, this thread goes this way. And, you have all these different like ideas about what continuity is or what the story is. There's room enough for essentially, in my opinion, multiple Star Trek continuums. I mean, there's really no reason we have to keep trying to hodgepodge everything into one timeline because,
Not everybody has to be related to Spock. I'm with
all
you.
right. So I think that's where they need to work. They need to look at it and decide, well, why don't we just, why don't we go ahead and do something where we have some continuity people who do particular continuities and do those continuities, as separate items and, write smaller stories that are not like, oh my God, the universe is going to end. I mean, as much as I love, things in, like Lower Decks and, some of the stories that came out with, Picard, you don't have to have end of the universe, type scale events happening every season. And it doesn't need to be that kind of level of fiction.
Now, I, on a lark, just searched the anime with the most episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Sazi-san. It started in 1969. It is still ongoing. It has over 2,771 episodes.
You got some washing to do, son.
I know. But I'm not into anime. And that comes out to basically 50 episodes a year. All right. So they can tell small stories.
Mm-hmm. You got some washing if you want to catch up.
Yeah, you got to, man. I'm on episode 3. I shall be caught up by next week.
Be like a Matrix neurojack implant,
Yeah,
and just like take it all in. You start bleeding out of your eyes and your ears.
I'm just gonna
download
the Cliff Notes.
I'm jacked over.
Just give me the Cliff Notes. Yeah, so there. I mean, what's the TV show with the most episodes?
I'd almost say it'd be Doctor Who, because I mean, if you count you have the thing about the overall story, and then it's split into like serials, like the old style, Lone Ranger, Buck Rogers thing.
Oh, the most is whoa, scheisse. Okay, our soap operas have totally whooped anime.
Uh-huh.
All right, because the one with the longest running is Guiding Light. It has been going. No, it ended. So it ended in 2009, from 1952 to 2009, and it has 18,262 episodes.
Well, at least you know where you start and you're in.
Yeah. And the second, and it's still ongoing, is 1963 to present, General Hospital, and it has 15,000 episodes plus. So yeah,
I'm waiting for the black hole to enter the star system and basically destroy the planet in that one.
Well, hold on here. Coming in at 9th place is Jeopardy with 8,000 plus episodes.
That's not story. That's
You're right. You're right. That's out. You're absolutely right. That is a very just distinction. You're correct.
I mean, unless you want to talk about the drama going on behind the scenes for the making of it.
Well, this is interesting. This one says that the Sazae-san anime is still ongoing. And this one gives it 7,500 plus episodes.
Maybe the other one wasn't updated as much.
Maybe I don't know.
But, of course, it's on the internet, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. Because you can't believe everything you read on the internet. Okay. For some reason. I'm not going to say what.
Let's go with something near and dear to our hearts. Longest running sci-fi shows.
Well,
there's your Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor Who, 850 episodes. Supernatural, 327. X-Files, 218. Stargate, 214. Red Dwarf, 74. So, but, okay, how many total episodes of Star Trek has there been across all shows?
As officially produced.
940 episodes of Star Trek across all 12 television series spanning 49 seasons. So Star Trek has topped Doctor Who, and I will take it because they keep changing doctors.
Hence why it's the longest running science fiction TV series.
Yeah, because it's not the same show. They keep changing it up with different doctors and stuff like that in order to make it fresh again. All right.
Well, that's true, but they also need them because, I don't think that, having no offense to the William Hartnell family, but it would be a very demented TV series to have a corpse animated with strings or whatnot and have him be,
That would be. I mean, it would be like a very macabre. God, what is it? Not Team America. God, what was
Super Marionation is what you're talking about.
Yeah, what was the most famous marionette show? Thunderbirds. Yeah, it'd be a very macabre Thunderbirds. No, but didn't they use CGI to bring him back here recently in some of those episodes? One of those episodes.
They took an actor who's actually Filch from Harry Potter, and they put him in, and basically vis-a-vis used him as a stand-in for William Hartnell. Actually, he's been replaced like 2 other times, I believe.
So right there,
William Pundell was actually the Doctor in the first Doctor in the 5 Doctors, and I think they had a stand-in who wasn't the actor who played Filch in one of the other episodes where you don't even really see his face. He's running along, so you can see his coattails running along, and it's basically all you see of the actor. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny with all the different stuff with Doctor Who, all the different actors. People are like, well, it's never the same TV show. Well, that's part of why it survives so long and adapts. And I think Star Trek adapts too. It just is a little bit different in the way it adapts. It tries to become whatever culturally it needs to be at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it necessarily succeeds all that well all the time.
No.
But at the same time, it tries to be culturally relevant. I think Strange New Worlds comes out of a period very much like the 60s for a lot of people, because Strange New Worlds has this sort of same sort of like desire to tell stories and be episodic, but it also has the same sort of, we're out there trying to show the world what it can be, and we're trying to do it in a fun sort of way. We're trying to explore, we're having fun, we're showing how things could be. Like the original series was completely new for its time. It wasn't like Roger Ramjet or Roger rocket ship,
Yeah.
With Space Patrol, it wasn't that, but it obviously borrowed some ideas from that. But the
It
problem with
borrowed
Star
more
Trek,
from westerns.
yeah, Wagon Train to the Stars and Horatio Hornblower. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you really want to get to the crux of what Star Trek was in the 60s, it was a little counterculture. Hey, we're going to do a little bit of stuff, maybe not necessarily socially acceptable, but we're going to stick it in there anyway. And then we're going to have some Wagon Train, and we're going to have some Horatio Hornblower, and we're just going to smash that up in a nice little ball.
See,
here you go. And that's the Star Trek universe.
I think that's where Discovery went wrong, is because in all the other shows, I mean, Next Gen, even Episode 1, they had the guy walking around in the Fleet Standard, skirt. They had a guy in a dress, but it was background. It was just accepted. It was just what it was. And so in all of them, they always tried to do that. They tried to push the bounds, but do it in such a way that it was just a background thing. It was never an in your face, except for the Uhura and Kirk kiss. It was never really in your face. It was just, hey, this is the way it is. It's accepted. And in Discovery, they tried too much into your face. And if things were just the way they were, and nothing really big was made of it, then that would have been one thing. But they were just, I think they tried too hard to be counterculture, and it backfired on them.
I would agree in a point where essentially I think that your statement about how if they just accepted it and just had gone with it and not kept, hey, we're going to make this point for you. See, we're going to put this right here.
Yeah,
keep putting it right here.
Yeah,
and the whole thing is, yes, you can bring up things in a story, address it at some point, but you don't need to address it every single episode. This is one of the things that was a triumph in the original series, was Spock and his emotions. Episode that really deals with it is the Naked Time. Spock basically has a breakdown over his emotions, and people started to get really attached to Spock, and it started this whole counterculture movement in the 60s of I grok Spock. And if you want to find out more about the culture of I grok Spock, go ahead and check that out online. You'll go down a rabbit hole that basically involves Robert A. Heinlein and a whole bunch of other science fiction authors. But anyway, the whole
Heinlein
thing is
my man, a stranger in a strange land.
Yeah,
that's where grok comes from.
The Cat That Walks Through Walls is one of my favorite ones. And the Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
I cut my teeth on, and it's still one of my favorite. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Yep.
That was an eye opener for me as a 15-year-old. But
actually,
anyway,
I think those two were like my favorite Heinlein stories. I think are those two.
I actually have upstairs like a whole Tookus load of Heinlein books, because for a while there I got really into into Heinlein. So whenever I'd go to the used bookstore, I'd go into the sci-fi section and I would find all the Heinlein books that people had turned in, because that's how they do it. You turn in old books and you get half off credit kind of thing. And so I was getting some of the original Heinlein books from like the 1950s and stuff like that. The ones that when he was originally writing, most people don't realize he originally was a young adult writer. And so I've got some of those original young adult books in the original, pulp paper, probably not going to last that long if it gets into the sunlight kind of publishing, but I got them upstairs. And but then I started, towards the end, some of his books towards the end, he started going down paths that I was not ready to go down with him. His idea of free love got way too Arkansas.
Well, he tries to impose like an idea of free love, polyamory, and a few other things together, and it becomes a hodgepodge of his personal feelings on, personal freedom.
I had no problems with the free love and all the stuff like that. It was the incestuous stuff I didn't like.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, there is that element,
I'm all in.
One sleeps with his mom.
Yeah, I'm all for the consenting adults, but when it comes to, you need to go stoop your daughter, no. That is one category of Pornhub. I'm not going down. Thank you.
It's a bridge too far. I would agree. It's beyond the pale. It's not something you need to be watching or reading. I will say though that Heinlein did have a lot of influence on Star Trek in several ways. I mean, obviously there's an allusion in the first season of Star Trek to Heinlein's story, although not directly identical. Which is rocket ship Galileo. The shuttlecraft Galileo is named after that particular vessel, and or at least I believe it is. I could be corrected. I could be incorrect on it, but I think it is actually a direct allusion. But the other thing is that.
Do you think that the character Slipstick Johnson had anything to do with the creation of Spock?
I think they may have borrowed some ideas from that.
Because you remember Slipstick, the human calculator, from back when they didn't have calculators.
Well, what's interesting about Spock was there was an article I read about Leonard Nimoy, how he was trying to figure out how to portray Spock, because in the very first episodes of Star Trek, we're talking like the cage and where no man has gone before, and even Corbin Might Maneuver. You still have shouty Spock.
Yeah,
the eyebrows are like yo bushy, Yeah, like he has cat eyebrows. They're like very accentuated, very thick. Like you could drop somebody into his eyebrow jungle and they get lost.
Yeah, there were villages in there. I'm sure if you look closely,
every time Spock needs to talk. Every time Spock needs to talk to the bridge, he's like, broadcasting his voice really loud. And you're like, whoa, man.
Oh yeah, he was still finding his pace, and that's the thing. I mean, even if you look at Next Gen, the Next Gen, everybody tells you first season of Next Gen, not so good. But once they find their pace and find their characters, much better. And
the thing with Leonard Nimoy was he said. He went to the director or he went to the producer. And he said, I'm having a problem trying to figure out, how I should approach or how I should react to things that I see on the view screen, because there's nothing to view. I mean, back in the day, what they had was they'd have a blue sheet or screen out in front of the, area on the bridge. So wherever Sulu would normally be looking and go, you got us into this again. Nice job. Good going, I class. Smooth move. It was that whole thing of you're acting against nothing or reacting to nothing. There's nothing there to look at. And so he's like, how do you want me to do this? And how should I react? Because I want you to, and the producer or director goes, I want you to act like you're a scientist and you're completely fascinated or entranced with what you're seeing. And you're thinking, how is this interesting? And so his first reaction was, whenever he sees something on the screen, fascinating. He doesn't go, or
he's like, not, oh my God, I'm gonna die. He's like, oh wow.
And that's how he created, at least in part, the character of Spock. I was going to get back to something have to probably start rolling this up.
Okay, let's go ahead and tie up on this because we've been going for an hour 20.
The episode that really a lot of people think of as like the penultimate, writing episode of Star Trek is The City on the Edge of Forever, which, was actually written as, a story with a lot of things going on in it that weren't included later on, because Gene Roddenberry didn't like them. Essentially, what the story was that there was a person on the Enterprise who was distributing drugs, and in the utopia Gene Roddenberry had wanted to create, he didn't think that would be happening. And so drug use was not considered kosher. It would probably have flown by the the network executives anyway. But the whole thing of somebody who's a wanton criminal inside Starfleet didn't fly with Gene Roddenberry, and so he had it rewritten quite a few times. And essentially, Harlan Ellison, who was the writer who was involved with that, basically spit and cursed and wouldn't ever do it again. Would never write for Star Trek again. It is considered one of the most celebrated episodes of Star Trek. But the story is, in essence, a bottle story for Star Trek. It takes place in New York City for the most part. I'm not spoiling anything here.
I hope so, not after this amount of time.
But it's very much a character-driven story. The repercussions are slightly, end of the universe kind of thing, but there's no direct evidence of it because everybody's on the planet or on Earth. There's no, starships blowing up, pieces falling everywhere, wood coming out and killing commanders and, rocks being chunked out of consoles or things of that sort. It's very much a human pathos story. Kirk falls in love with a woman who has to die. And that is a great story. And its origins are one of the most complicated, dramatic stories of writing in the original series. I guess the basic point of it is that great stories don't have to be expansive and told, like universe-ending threat or, galaxy-threatening war or something like that. It can be a small story set amongst people. And that's really what connects the audience to the story, is connecting to their feelings and what their experiences are. If you can't do that, you've basically lost the whole point of the thread. You're wasting your time.
You got a point there. That's probably one of the problems that we're coming up with now with the Marvel movies, and one of the reasons that people are no longer interested in the Marvel movies is the fact that one of the whole things, like one of the reasons I've often said that Keanu Reeves is such a great actor is that he plays, he's a very blank character, and people can put themselves into him because he's not Jack Nicholson, all right, and so people can put themselves into him.
Here's Johnny.
Yeah, exactly. But and that's something they're losing with the Marvel movies, is these characters now are just so grandiose and so powerful. Nobody can relate to them. All right, nobody can relate to the great big characters because there's no Peter Quills anymore. All right. Just somebody bumblefucking his way through the storyline. They need more of that. All right. And they don't have that anymore. Yeah.
I agree.
But anyways, we are at an hour 24, so let's go ahead and tie this up. And we'll be back. I got a wedding next week. We'll find out if we'll be back next week. Not my wedding, somebody else's. I'm already burying.
You already tied it on. That'd get weird.
Anyways, people, we will see you hopefully in a week or two. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.